So, Mike, as you heard, the president saying no to the sale of booze. We knew that one was coming, but there are a few changes that will help the economy.
Absolutely, Shahan. So the Minister, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, actually announced these changes yesterday evening, and they've now come into effect for the remainder of the lockdown. So let's take a look at the key changes as we are actually calling them, Shahan. Most of this is to do with the economy and ensuring that the economy remains stable throughout this period. So the changes stipulating that Eskom's coal suppliers should be able to continue to do business. That really means most of the collieries around the country which supply coal to Eskom. Also, fuel and energy is an important part of the equation. We've known that petrol stations have been allowed to operate, but now just a stipulation that fuel refineries can remain open. And this one was important, Shahan. Mining companies now allowed to operate at half of their usual capacity. But the regulations stipulate that the miners will have to undergo strict screening processes on a daily basis. Also, hardware stores and those sorts of suppliers which provide tools to tradesmen, they're allowed to operate, provided that the purpose is for emergency repairs. For example, a hole in your roof, Shahan, perhaps. Home repairs are also covered by that stipulation. And also any businesses, Shahan, which perform essential services. They're also covered by that stipulation, just in case there is a need for emergency supplies and emergency repairs. And speaking of repairs, of course, if you do happen to have a fender bender and you are working in essential services, maybe you're a doctor, you're a nurse, then you can also get some emergency car repairs, which of course is important so that you can actually get to work and perform that service as well. There are also several social changes or changes to the regulations affecting the social element. For example, Shahan, a lot of questions about split homes in South Africa, children who will go between homes, for example, because their parents are divorced or separated. What you'll need to supply if you are a parent travelling with a child: a court order or a parenting agreement which stipulates that you're sharing custody, and possibly as well a birth certificate to show that you are in fact the parent of the child. And also you have to be able to prove that the child is not visiting anyone who's been in contact with COVID-19. And finally, Shahan, this is important as well. Government saying that evictions are banned, and that includes informal as well as formal dwellings. So people have a right to stay exactly where they are if they do have some sort of dwelling during the lockdown.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting to see how that plays out in Cape Town, where the city is accused of illegally evicting people. So let's talk about this. Earlier this week, we heard that it's going to be an important week for South Africa. And what will happen this week will have an implication on lockdown going further. Absolutely.
We saw that presentation by Professor Salim Abdul Karim, which really has important implications for us. Let's take a quick look at those details, Sean. So what he said was, if we managed to have an average of less than 90 new cases on a daily basis, Shahan, and we have a CHW rate of less than 0.1%, there is strong support for easing the lockdown regulations. What's important here in terms of the CHW rate, that's where all those health workers go out and do screening, door-to-door screening across the country. So that's what he means there by the CHW rate. So the key figure, Shahan, in terms of those daily cases, 90. Keep that in mind as we work through these numbers. On the 27th of March, which was when the lockdown began, we hit a high of 243 cases. And what this graph shows us is we have seen a relatively strong decline in terms of the numbers. But let's focus on the first week of lockdown, and we'll get a sense of the progress that we are making. So the first week, Shahan, we averaged 76 new cases, 76 new cases on a daily basis. If we take a look at week 2 of lockdown, and we bring that graphic up, Shahan, we were averaging just under 70, around about 67, in fact, new cases on a daily basis. So certainly much better than at the beginning of the lockdown. But this, of course, is the key period, the 10th to the 16th of April. Let's take a quick look at that. And I'm afraid it's not fantastic news, Shahan. We've seen some relatively high numbers, 69 on the 10th, 145 on the 12th of April, and just yesterday, Shahan, 99 new cases. So that takes us to an average of 96 cases for the week. That is higher, of course, than that threshold of 90. It doesn't necessarily mean that the lockdown will continue for even more weeks after this 2-week period, but it certainly is a consideration for government. We're aiming to be less than 90. I'm afraid for the week we're 96, Johan.
Yeah, that's definitely not a good sign, but of course they'll make the call at a later stage.
Indeed.
Michael Marulia with that.